So attention is now being drawn to Minnesota's voting laws. One policy outright allows registered voters to vouch for up to 8 people seeking same-day registration. But catch this, without an ID. And it goes even further. For those living in residential facilities like nursing homes, employees can vouch for an unlimited number of residents. Looking at past Minnesota elections, the amount of same-day voter registration is staggering, well, outside the margin of victory. Joining us now, conservative activist and Early Vote Action founder, Scott Presler. Scott, welcome to the program. You're on the ground a lot, and you love registering people to vote. But this is concerning. Not only are they doing it same day with an ID, without an ID, but they allow other people to vouch for other voters.
Yes, I want to be very clear. This is according to Minnesota state law that with vouching, no proof of residency is required. No photo or voter ID is required. If we were all living in the same neighborhood, I could vouch for you, Lawrence, and say, I know Lawrence, I know Will Kane, and just simply my vouching and you guys signing an oath declaring that you are following the law, you will be handed 2 ballots and you will be able to vote. And if I have 6 other friends that I vouch for, my one registered voter in Minnesota could get 8 voters. Now, what's even more concerning, and you just said this earlier, is that if I were an employee at a residential facility, according to state law, I could vouch for unlimited voters by simply showing proof of being an employee at the residential facility. And so thanks to Nick Shirley, we are now exposing potential fraud when it comes to our election system.
So, Scott, if we can't trust Minnesota to verify the businesses with billions of dollars, how can we trust them to verify if these people are actual residents of the state?
Correct. Well, that's why investigative journalism is so important. And I really want to break this down for a second, Lawrence, because a viewer at home might say, okay, what if 8 people are vouched? Could that actually impact a state election? Let's go back to 2008 for a second. Did you know that in 2008, 500,000 voters, or nearly 19% of all voters in Minnesota, registered on Election Day? What? And did you know that former Senator Al Franken was elected by 312 votes? So I'm not alleging anything on the program, but what I am saying is that this vouching system, which clearly opens the door for potential fraud, could swing statewide elections. And when you find out that Al Franken was the 60th vote for the Affordable Care Act, these voter fraud insecurities could open the door to very real consequences. And I have breaking news that I have filed an email with the Minnesota Secretary of State, and I have submitted a data practices request to get the data of registrants, of people that vouched, and how many of those 500,000 voters actually came about because of vouching, and that's breaking news.
It is unbelievable. A little bit more breaking news, Scott. David, the man who went to visit those daycare centers with Nick Shirley, says he has now filed a criminal complaint against Governor Walz moments ago. Let's watch it.
I filed a formal criminal complaint against Tim Walz for violating Minnesota Statute 3.971, Subdivision 9.
When did you do that?
3 or 4 weeks ago.
Okay, recently.
Recently,
okay.
Yeah. So there's an investigation ongoing, and I think Tim's going to have a bad day, and he deserves it because he allowed this fraud because he wanted the voting block that the Somalis represent, because they all vote in a block, and it's 100,000, 150,000, who knows how many. But it's so bad now that when we go to a facility, they're already screaming, Nick Shirley, Nick Shirley, Nick Shirley.
Unbelievable. Final reaction, Scott.
You know, Tim Walz was saying that Minnesota is the #2 state to retire in. I think that we're finding out that Minnesota is the #1 state for fraud and the #1 state for leering. And I just want everyone to know that we are going to be like a dog on a bone, and we are not going to let this go, and we're going to fight for the American people.
Yeah, I want people to go to jail, and I want the money back as well. Wherever it
Yes.
leads,
Amen.
they should go after it. Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
GOP candidate David Hand joins us now. David, this has become a scandal that the entire country is focused on, and your opponent in this Minnesota Senate race, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, recently appeared in a video where she is wearing a hijab, despite the fact that she is a devout Catholic, apparently, and she seems to be apologizing to the Somali population there in Minnesota for the scandal and for bringing them into the scandal to any extent. Now, we should point out we invited the lieutenant governor on today, but she declined and sent a statement saying the lieutenant governor has repeatedly said it's unconscionable that people are stealing from taxpayers and that they should absolutely be prosecuted for fraud to the full extent of the law. As she runs for the U.S. Senate, she's also focused on the fraud and corruption in Washington under Trump, where guardrails have been dismantled and oversight has been weakened. So, David, what do you say to all of that?
Well, I think it's unbelievable. We used to be the land of 10,000 lakes. Now we've become the land of 10,000 frauds, and it looks like we're now in the land of make-believe. The lieutenant governor is a candidate for the United States Senate, and she's out pretending to be a Somali, which makes absolutely no sense at all. But the fact is that the real problem in Minnesota is the governor and lieutenant governor who've overseen massive amounts of fraud by pretending to help people with tax dollars and then hiring criminals to steal that money. They need to be thrown out.
So the governor of your state, Tim Walz, he's kind of all over the map in response to this scandal. He's saying, oh, yes, it's terrible, and we're going to get all over it. We have a long history of fighting fraud, which clearly isn't true given the results, but he's at least trying to make that statement. But then he's also saying, well, it's not really billions. We think it's a lot less than that. Oh, and by the way, the Republicans have nothing else to run on, so they're just attacking me. Oh, by the way, this seems a little racist as well. What do you make of that hodgepodge from the governor?
Well, it just doesn't make any sense at all. They clearly had a responsibility, both Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, to make sure the laws got administered correctly, and they didn't do that. We've had all this federal money coming in for supposedly to help people, and none of it has gone to help anybody. It's just disappeared, and they have complete responsibility for that. It's shameful that they have let that happen. They've taken no responsibility. Nobody in the administration has been fired or lost their job. And to say that they've been focused on fraud is just not true. They've been focused on handing out money is what they've been focused on.
And David, listen, obviously you're running for that Senate seat in your state there, Minnesota. What is your message to Minnesotans? What is it that you want them to know from your perspective as you're seeking out this seat?
Well, I think that in Minnesota, we've seen this massive fraud and this other failure on the part of the Democrats who run the state. We can't afford to send radical leftist politicians like Peggy Flanagan or Angie Craig to Washington to oversee the spending of federal dollars. It just doesn't make any sense. So my focus is going to be on making sure that we've got a good set of laws that are going to be administered properly, and we want to support the president and his administration. The Democrats in Minnesota have done nothing but obstruct this administration, and the administration needs allies in Washington to work with them, and the people in Minnesota expect that. That's our message. That's what we're going to run on, and that's what we're going to win with.